Hi, you're listening to The Comedian's Tea Party with Cy Deves. Fair warning, this podcast may contain adult content. It may not. I don't know. I never really have a plan. So let's listen on and find out. Hello and welcome to episode 43 of The Comedian's Tea Party with Cy Deves. And in this episode I have got Cesar Alcazab, who is a lovely comedian who I've known for years. So I've not seen him that much in recent years, obviously not in very recent years because no one's seen anyone. But yeah, we used to gig together quite a bit. Since then, because he disappeared for a little bit while he was making some films, which is very much something that he likes doing now. He has made a couple of films. Go and see him. David and Paint Dry are both of the ones that he's written. He talks about a poster on his wall at one point, and that is for Paint Dry, I believe. Yeah, very cool that he's done all that. And won awards for it. So he's an award-winning filmmaker. That's what you got here. And yeah, like I say, he's a lovely comedian, lovely guy. So it's great having him on to talk about quite a lot. He actually makes some 8 Mile references, which I audibly nod along to. You can hear me agreeing with the things that he's saying about 8 Mile. Here's a little secret for you. I've never seen it. So I'm agreeing with things that I don't understand, which is quite bad. It could be horrendously offensive, but I feel like I would have heard about that before now if it was horrendously offensive. So hopefully it's not. If it is, apologies. Had to bleep some slander a couple of times. We were talking about, well, actually at one point we were talking about someone that I was talking about on a recent episode, a questionable promoter, and I've bleeped their name out, so they'll never know it's them, which does lead onto a very brief conversation about bringers, because we talk about it later on in the podcast as well. Just to explain what bringers are, because we didn't fully explain it at the time. That is where a promoter is too lazy to do any promotion themselves and therefore force the acts to bring an audience member with them in order to be able to play the gig. It is a very, very lazy method to running a gig, but you know, they occasionally have their place early in your career. It can give you a nice bit of sort of confidence, but it is a great deal of work to constantly find someone to bring to gigs. Nobody really wants to do it. So learn to promote or don't run a gig. That's my suggestion, or just accept that no one will be there. We also talk at one point about a car journey that we went on with a comedian called Chris Joyce, who sadly passed away a few years ago. He is one of the loveliest people I've met through comedy, and he was so funny. It's such a shame. Like, he was just a really lovely guy, very, very funny. And I would recommend that you go and find, just Google Chris Joyce Dance to Win, and you will be pleased you've done so, because it was incredibly funny. They played that at his funeral, and it's a really sort of a bittersweet moment, but it was nice. Just to clarify as well, Cesar refers to Nico and Dane, and I haven't had confirmation from him, but I'm reasonably certain he's referring to Nico Yearwood and Dane Baptiste, both very good comedians. I should think you've seen Dane Baptiste on a number of TV shows, but yeah, he just refers to them in their first names because he's real cool. Just before the last break at the end, if it sounds like I sort of cut off quite quickly into the tea-stirring sting, that is because Cesar turned into a full Dalek. His microphone went absolutely wild and was unlistenable, so I had to cut him off and hang up and start again. So that's why we get back into a bit of conversation afterwards. But anyway, the main thing is, it's a very fun conversation. I really enjoyed it. I've got an announcement of who I've got on next week's episode at the end. I'll tell you that at the end. And I've literally just finished recording that episode. It was one of my favourites in a while. Very enjoyable, very, very funny. So I'm looking forward to being able to bring that to you. It was my first international recording as well. So exciting stuff. However, also exciting, this episode. You're going to love it. It's very enjoyable. I'll see you at the end.
Hey, buddy.
Hello. How are you doing, man?
Not bad, not bad. I'm working from home today, so that's why I was just like, yeah, just give me a shout when you can. And
cool.
When we first started messaging, I think actually, yeah, you messaged me for my birthday, which is very kind of you.
Oh yeah.
And I the last in mid March, I had just moved into this place, so the whole of like this current new year and half of last year was essentially trying to move. So I
Right.
don't know.
Oh, so
Yeah, it's just I
March
mean,
last year.
no, I moved. This is new, so I've been
Right.
here for only two months.
Yeah.
Yeah, just 2 months. But yeah, like of since last year, so we're talking like a good 9 months has been trying to go from moving to getting here.
Oof.
Um, yeah, that's basically been the main part. But I'm sure we'll get into all that anyway during the chat.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, this is all a good portion of what we've said already. Will stay in, including the I'm having issues. No, that won't. I'll take that out. I'm sort of the more I do this, the more I'm swinging between trying to be more professional and less professional. So like I'm trying
But
to
it's fine by me,
I'm
wherever way you want to go.
I'm
I'll
making it
just
sound
yeah.
better, but leaving in more shit.
Oh, are we recording?
Yeah. Oh, we're recording. Yeah.
Oh, I could have went off on a massive tangent, but like, oh god, all right, go.
Oh,
Sorry,
that
as you were
is
saying.
that's not 90% of what the podcast is. It's just a big tangent, one like hour long tangent. Which is why sometimes it's about an hour and 40 minutes. I talked to Matthew Crosby for about 2 hours, 10 minutes, but didn't record about 25 minutes of that. So,
Oh, I've made that mistake before.
yeah.
It's always awkward as well when you're like trying to set up and oh god, or if you're going overtime and you're like, hopefully that made the cut.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
no, it's
usually have
fine.
that with filming though. I filmed scenes where like the audio's been bad. I'm like, oh good god, no.
So,
That
what,
with
like, do you only find
podcasts,
out it's bad later?
yeah, in the editing room,
Oh,
which is like,
man.
good god, when you're. So that's always a nightmare when you're trying to get stuff because you don't have time to really. I mean, big productions obviously they have this thing called dailies where you can watch it back and you've got the video assist,
Right, okay.
um, and everything else. But when you're independent, you're just trying to film as much as you can and looking at your sound guy going like, I trust you to
Yeah,
give
yeah,
me the
yeah.
files in high res audio, everything crisp clear. And then yeah, I actually had on one occasion I was this movie behind me is which for the listeners can't see it, but I have a movie poster in my home
Yeah, I was
of
going to
my
comment
own
on that.
the
It's
movie I
very cool.
made. And when I was filming it, I had a sound recordist, and then they had to take a day off or something. I was like, that's fine.
Yeah.
And they brought a replacement but that the replacement was so good, I just kept them on.
Oh, really?
And then it didn't sit well, but I was like, what do you want me to do? Not
Yeah.
like it's my money. I'm hiring the better
Yeah,
person.
yeah, yeah.
So
Did you tell the other guy
and they were
just
more
not to
expensive,
come
but I
back?
didn't care. I just the way that the new person worked was just so more efficient. I was like, I'm just keeping the second person.
Yeah, yeah, fair
Yeah.
enough. That's the sort of the worry of taking day off during something important like filming is that you'll get a replacement that's better than you.
Yeah, and the bigger irony is that she recommended him. She was like, "Well, I've got this guy who can." I'm like, "Great," and then it was like, "Well," afterwards, where I was like, "I'm still going to use him." She was like, "Well, I was like, well, we started the day and we're going to finish it
Yeah,
of the same crew." Again, these things happen. I think sometimes, it's just you just got to move on. But it's always weird with that kind of stuff, especially because like I don't have any close knit with any crew members or even cast for that matter. So when you are that, you're obviously a collaborator, but at the end of the day, it's like when it's your money, you're like, look, I just have to do what's
yeah,
can't
absolutely.
I'm going to spare some pennies over your feelings. But yeah, audio is number one priority, I would say, in podcasting.
Yes, it's up there for sure.
Yeah.
Up there along with nothing. That's it, really. It's audio. Yeah, yeah, content, I suppose.
I've listened to a few podcasts where the subject matter is obviously, I'm like, maybe a great guest, but when the audio is bad, I just turn it off. I think
Yeah,
like there was one where Chappelle was doing some thing
yeah,
and his audio was so bad, I just stopped watching it. I was like, look, I can't hear what he's saying. So watching, like, this is a relevant time.
yeah.
But yeah.
I watched a stand-up special of I'm not going to say who it was, but a very very well-known comedian who I don't know where they recorded it, but the sound was not ideal. It sounded like it was recorded from like maybe they had sort of two microphones in a room, but like they didn't take a direct feed of his voice. I mean, their voice, not his.
Or her.
His or her.
Yeah, good save.
Or they.
Them.
Yeah.
Always say they and them.
Yeah.
Yeah. With this person, I'm guessing this is someone in the circuit that you don't want to name, as opposed to someone famous on Netflix.
It's not someone who's going to listen, but it is. It is someone who I'm trying to get on the podcast.
Right. Okay. So it's not a big name on Netflix.
No, it's a big name on Amazon Prime.
Okay, right. Well, I used to be on Amazon Prime. That's not a big deal.
Yeah.
Anyone can get on Amazon Prime back in the day. So the one I was referring to Bill Burr. Someone said in one of his specials that the audience was dead, like they just didn't react. And I'm like, well, first of all, it's Bill Burr. It's a Netflix special. I'm guessing they all wanted to be there.
Yeah.
That was a case where the sound recordist had him perfectly mic'd, obviously, but there wasn't enough microphones into the crowd, which happens sometimes, when you're doing sound editing. You record, if you're recording a comedy show, you record the comedian through his own microphone. That goes into a feed, which is very easy to do because he's the only one holding a microphone. But the audience, who are obviously having to laugh out loud for it to reach, they put microphones in the audience, especially in these big rooms, in these theaters. They will put microphones in the audience to get their laugh. And maybe either they didn't record that, or in the sound editing, they kept the audience low.
Yeah.
Again, it's a finished piece. But in terms of the comedian specials that I do on YouTube, I've seen a few. And a friend of mine was just, his camera was getting blurry at times. Other people's, their audio. I mean, their camera, lack of framing as far as like where to put the camera. Right. I get it sometimes if you're just putting stuff out there. But if this is meant to be your piece, hire a crew. It's an investment at the end of the day. And I'm thinking of doing that as well. Just being like, well, to be fair, like I want to just kind of burn material, but I also don't want to just not do it.
Yeah.
So even if it's just for me, because I was thinking about this because of a pandemic, obviously that plays your mind on things. I definitely want to have really well recorded pieces, just for me, so that I can say, well, here's something I did. Because you're only going to get younger. This is the best I'm ever going to. You're only going to get what I don't want to be, an old man one day and not remember my youth.
Yeah.
And we're in the best time as far as technology to record it. So, this is. I definitely want to record more things, even if it's just me doing it. I don't need the extra glam.
Yeah. I need to start recording more stuff. That's the issue. Is I send videos to people, and I haven't recorded a new video in a long time. I've tried to a couple of times, and then like the pictures sort of crapped out, or the gig's turned sort of, and it's unusable, like that sort of thing. But I had one from Manchester Comedy Store, but they just take
the Gong Show.
No, as Alex Boardman runs a night there, and
okay, so it's a separate night at the store.
Yes, yeah.
Cool.
But they just take the sound feed directly from the desk, so all you're getting is the audience through the handheld mic. So
what I was saying before.
Yeah, so I
did the BBC radio one, and I sent that to someone. They said it needs to be a video, and I was like, well, this is the best audio you're ever going to get. And it's the BBC, for crying out loud. I mean, at what point do you need? I mean, I'm performing at the Glee Club, which is we're talking 800 people.
Yeah.
I mean, it's hard, and end of the day, isn't the whole point? So, for the listeners who aren't into stand up, who maybe just listening for the tea, the context is you send a clip so that people book you, so they have a sample of your work.
Yeah.
And one occasion, so I sent the audio, again, crisp audio, the best you can ask for, really, as far as BBC level production, and then loads of laughs because, it's a big event. And then they were like, no, it has to be video. I don't know if it was the same person, different person, but I sent one person a video. It was, I can barely hear you because it was just from the camera.
Yeah.
And I said, well, you can hear the audience, right? And it was like, no, it needs to hear the set. So I was like, okay, send him another one. And then they said, oh, this is the same material, but obviously different night. So whatever. So, it's like less people. You can kind of see it was just like an empty and still nothing. I was like, what do you, the whole point of this is for you to see my material, get a sense of, you don't even need to find it funny. The people who are in the room
Well,
You need to find it funny.
That is one of my biggest gripes, because I get that with bookers. And I don't know what it is. There's some bookers that really like me, and like they'll book me, and their audiences often like me as well. And sometimes audiences will like me, but the booker will be there, and they won't like me, and they'll say like, "Oh yeah, it wasn't very good, was it?" I'm like, I did very well. Like, I had several applause breaks, but the bookers just sort of gone, nah, it's not for me, so they won't book me again.
Yeah, I mean that's definitely an issue, especially when it's. I mean, I guess if it's maybe like a branded thing, whatever, or they have a particular like style that they want to perform or something. But at the end of the day, it's just like, I mean, I found it where I was struggling to get bookings for the very same reason, where I was just like, oh, that wasn't what you like. But I was like, well, the audience laughed.
Yeah.
And or even where I would, you do like an unpaid spot, and then obviously afterwards they see you, get some feedback, and do it. And I remember just not being able to get into that opening spot, so I, would stay in that. And then afterwards, I was like, this is ridiculous. Like, I remember one time going to a gig, doing an unpaid spot, well, let me put it this way. I did so well that the organizer who gets the agency to bring the comedian, so she has no idea.
Yeah.
She doesn't do the bookings, she gets an agency. She liked me so much, she said, here's some money.
Amazing.
And next time I'm going to tell them to put you on a paid spot. Never heard from both those people ever again. So sometimes it's better just to be average.
Yeah.
Because you'll keep getting those, no, it is ridiculous. And also when I did solo shows and therefore no one knows you, so they go on your YouTube channel maybe or wherever, you do really well. Because there isn't anyone other than you and then advertising and they've mentioned you in a magazine or whatever, like a fringe festival leaflet, wherever. And again, same thing where it's like, people laughed. The whole year I was worried no one would laugh because I've been doing, like smaller rooms, and yet everyone, and it's just such a silly thing. It's such a silly thing to worry about, to think about, and it's so subjective. It's like, there's people I don't find funny, but they're making a room laugh. What am I?
Absolutely,
the minority here.
Yeah, that's the funny thing. Bookers often don't see past their own sort of opinion, and I understand, because they want to have a night that they'll enjoy if it's sort of coming out of their pocket, But like when it's a massive room full of people and the people like who they're seeing, then surely you should be booking for the people, not for yourself.
Yeah. I mean, there's that. I get sometimes when like I've had it where like a night in Essex, for instance, I remember there was like a competition. I think it was a competition, but it was
whereabouts?
Someone who basically, I can't. It was years ago, like maybe like 2 years in when I was just starting out.
So I was going to say, to my knowledge, there's no competitions in. There's Colchester Comedian of the Year. There's that one.
No, it wasn't that. That's why I said I don't even think it was a competition. It was probably just like, something where the MC probably gave you feedback, or the booker probably gave you feedback in terms of getting invited for spots again, maybe to that effect. Because I remember everyone would then get sort of feedback and stuff. And I don't know why they did this, because essentially the room would be in hysterics.
Yeah.
And then the guy would be like, yeah, I'm not really sure. Here's where you went. And then everyone would look at each other like, and what's funny was the guy was kind of, he would get a bit of stick on Facebook at a time of being like, sexist or whatever, or obviously, a little bit of just, he only books white men, that kind of thing.
Who is that?
And then his sort of, the guy next to him was in hysterics. And go, I liked you, man. But he didn't, so it needs to be the both of us.
Yeah.
Let's move on. And it's just these silly things. But yeah, to be fair, it's nice to have a pandemic, and hopefully all those businesses go a bit fall out and never come back again. I'm not too bad. I did before the pandemic, I had shows abroad booked, and before I had like Stockholm, Prague. I was meant to go Munich. I'm just getting some messages. Some of them are saying that we're no longer available. But I remember going to Sweden for like a week and doing like 8 shows in a week, which again, I mean, I don't even think you can do that in London unless they're all open mics.
No.
So I was there and I was just like, all the all the promoters and stuff are very happy to have me on, and they give you a good spot and good timing. They give you a lot of context and stuff. All the comedians are really nice. They're not threatened by it because you're leaving anyway. You don't live there, so it's just basically you're there, and they want to see a new guy because they're probably sick of the same old sod. And then all the audiences are lovely because one, they're European, so they have class, and so they sit politely and they have their sociable drink and they applaud and stuff like that. And I thought, this is way better than going into the middle of nowhere and getting a Southwest train in England or whatever, or Virgin trains at the time, and having to go to some town and some pub, and they're like, "Yep, cool." Like, we made your entire audience laugh, but you didn't think it was good enough. All right,
yeah.
Travel 2 hours back.
So funny.
Yeah, there's loads of people like that. I'm like, what do you want?
Yeah.
I would love to, what's the criteria? Like, do you want these kind of, I can write these jokes. Do you want, tell me what you find funny and I'll write that. We'll work backwards. I don't want to, because I had one where
I do this for money. I will do it for money if you tell me to do a particular thing. Like, that's fine.
Yeah. I mean, I've come all this way. I'm definitely willing to make the effort. But it's weird sometimes when you'll get to the, you'll make the whole crowd laugh and they're like, yeah, but that first guy, the one that did all the local references, he was smashing it. It's like, well, he was doing all the local references. Why do you think he was smashing it? Like,
he lives here. They're all his friends.
Yeah, I was like, the guy from Hull did a Hull reference. Really, this is what we're, Yes, bangers and mash. That is a great punchline for nothing else outside of this country. Like, you're never gonna go, Like, oh well, fair enough.
My favourite one was there was a booker in Ipswich that sort of way, and I went and did this gig, and it was horrible little, it just wasn't set up right. It was in a bar, and not even everyone was sitting in front of you. Some people were sort of sitting around the corner, and there were about sort of 5 people on, and there was the guy that opened, I think it was his first gig or something, and he said, "Oh yeah, just do 20." What? And he
first ever gig?
Yeah, well, something like that. It felt like it, certainly. It was god awful. And he came off, and then he was like, the next person was going on, and he said, "Oh yeah, just sort of go and do 10." And then I think I was booked to do 10, and as I'm walking onto stage, you went, "Oh, do 15 or 20," and I was like, "What?" So I just had to sort of fill in time. And I did it, and I got the material, so I was like, all right, fine, whatever. Went with it, sort of got there. The audience were beside themselves. We were having a great time. It was really, really lovely. I was having a laugh with the sort of front row and good bit of banter. And then a person came on and sang some songs, and didn't know the songs, so it was comedy stuff, but it was just terrible. And because they said at the start of the set, "Oh, I haven't done this in 8 months. I hope I can still remember it." And they didn't, and they forgot everything, and it was awful. It was so bad.
So this was recent. This was pandemic times.
No. That was it was a few years ago.
Okay. Because when you said they haven't done it in 8 months, I was like,
"Oh yeah, no excuse, no."
Yeah.
And then, and I was like, "Well, it's a weird night, but at least I'm pretty confident I did the best tonight." And then he sent me a message, and he's like, "Oh, it's a shame you died on your ass, isn't it?" And I was like, "Are you thinking of someone else?"
As well, so one, your first point in the story was he goes, "I do an extra do 15, 20.
Yeah,
10 more minutes of material isn't just do 10 more minutes of jokes. It's an entire set. Are you interesting enough to hold an audience for 20 minutes?
Yeah.
And then also,
I'll do a different style of material for 10 minutes than what I will for 20.
Yeah. And then also it's well, if I'm doing, say, 10 more minutes, that means maybe, I can extend a story. I can bring in, the order changes. This has to now go at the end. This has to, you're mentally having to juggle every material you have and think what works best.
Yeah.
So you can close on a high. And then to the words when he goes, he died. Dying on your arse would be if everyone booed through, you completely fumbled, the 8 Mile, basically, Eminem opening scene of 8 Mile, that is dying on your arse, right? You just go home, spaghetti on your clothes.
Yeah.
The ending of 8 Mile is where you smash it, where everyone's joining in, the other guy walks away, and then you win the battle essentially, and everything in between is just another set. Because the idea of like, oh, like you're meant to walk off on like a standing go, the audience doesn't care who you are. I mean, unless you're Jimmy Carr,
Yeah.
like McIntyre and stuff, they're not going to be interested in, because especially if it's an unknown name. And yeah, I think it's sometimes it gets silly sometimes when people throw these expressions out like bomb, died out. Even I had it where so if I do like a routine and stuff, maybe there's like a minute or two of silence, but they're listening. Obviously, I'm telling something.
They're engaged.
That's building towards something. So they're going, oh, you didn't get many laughs. I was like, the laughs I did get were high. Like I got laughs when it was supposed to be a laugh. Like, if they're listening, if they're, on their phones, if they're booing, I mean, if they're paying attention, it's a show. I don't see I didn't do one-liners. If I did one-liners for 10 minutes and it was silence for 8 of those minutes, that's bad. But if you're telling a story, I need to set it up. And some stories, you need to set up a bit longer.
Oh, yeah.
The notion of laugh every 15 seconds, or you need to do this by a certain minute. It's like, well, we've seen enough shows now that that's not true.
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah. There are shows that have won a lot of awards that have long periods of no laughs, and yet they still win awards. So yeah, it's nonsense.
Yeah, especially I mean, end of the day, it is performing arts. So if you do want to be a little bit more arty and go into a theme or something like that, then fair enough.
Yeah,
you want to
got to build it.
Like, just do zingers and just be like, I'm just going to tell joke after joke after joke. Fine. And then I don't understand how people can complain. Like, literally, isn't the whole point of variety? You know what I mean? Like, you book Sai, you book Caesar, there's a variety. And then why would you have the same person like act after act? I get as well when people assume I'm not going to do well because I'm Cesar Al-Qasab, and they think, oh, like foreigner won't do well in like certain parts of the country, completely forgetting I'm Scottish and I'm probably more masculine than they are. Like, I mean, what like it's really like, oh, they don't really do well with like, people from different. I'm like, well, I'm not from a different country. In fact, I'm probably
talk to me on the phone
more British than they are.
So
yeah, or as much. But it's all silly stuff. And yeah, really, really weird how people think sometimes.
Yeah. Oh, I just remember my favourite thing about the guy from Ipswich. He was running a festival. Well, no, he's running a stage at a festival, should I say, like a music festival.
Yeah.
And like it was very poorly organised. The first 2 acts were trying to do sets while bands were on, and you couldn't hear anything because like the bands were so loud. So basically, there was like between 10 and 20 minutes between bands, depending how big the bands were. So like each act got 10 or 20 minutes, like until the band started to do their set. So everyone's sort of like blasting through it, and they're doing all right. And kids are around as well, so you're having to like change your set like on the fly depending how many kids are around. And I ended up getting one of the longest slots, and I did about 17 minutes, I think, and absolutely smashed it. Like I don't want to brag sort of too much, but I had a good gig. Yeah, and
people laugh
afterwards.
Yeah. You're a comedian. People laugh.
And afterwards, the booker turned to me and he said, "Oh yeah, you are good, aren't you?" I was like, "Yes, thank you very much."
Also, I mean, how many references do you need? Like, if someone said, like, "Oh, sorry," I'll be like, "Great comic and stuff." I actually remember I bring you up in tales often, only because we were at a gig once sitting next to each other because we were catching up at the same time. And then there was an opening act on, and we were kind of chatting in the background. Remember where I'm going with this?
Yeah.
And then you turned to me and goes, "He's doing your act." And I'm like, "What?" It's like the guy was pretty much almost verbatim doing my act, which at the time was essentially, I'm Arabic, I'm Scottish, blah, 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 and just doing all the sort of accent jokes and everything else, and where you're from and stuff. And I remember watching that and going, I'm going to give this guy the benefit of the doubt, because one, I don't think he recognizes me.
Yeah.
Like, I don't recognize him either. It wasn't someone I've seen often enough. And then two, I've done that act enough times. I did it on the BBC radio thing. Like, it was kind of, as you said, you recognize that. It's like, that's your act. And I remember having a bigger show the next day. like 20-minute set and deciding not to use that 5 minutes
Yeah.
in it. And then from then on, my show went much better because I just had a brand new opening.
Yeah.
But it was so weird to sit and watch someone do. Again, I mean, if I say it sometimes goes, well, are you sure? But when you brought it up, that I was just like, oh, okay. Like, you're just suddenly like, he's doing your act. I was like, oh, okay. Like, so and I tell people that all the time because people ask like, have you ever had someone steal your material? And I was like, no, but Cy Davis once told me as we're watching the guy in front of us.
Cy Deves.
That was hilarious, to be fair.
Cy Deves. You just said Davis.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, that is true, actually. I get people, to be fair, I mean, Caesar and Cesar and all this stuff.
It happens a lot.
I get names confused.
I once, my worst, so what's your worst, what's the worst way you've ever been introduced? Because mine was at Natis. And like Lauren Patterson was there, and like a few other sort of really good acts that were doing really well now. And I was there, and like sort of enough people knew who I was, and I got introduced to stage as C. Diabez.
The thing is,
and all of the acts were killing themselves laughing. And I was like, that's not right.
I mean, Deves and Davis, as I said, but because I know so many Davises, like Darius Davis, who I do a podcast with, so I'm actually used to saying that name often. And I was speaking to him earlier today, so the name is like when I see that, like those letters, like DE, and there's a V in the middle, there's an S in it, I immediately you jump to it.
Yeah.
But Cy, I'm guessing, is it short for Simon?
It is.
Yeah. Cy is Cy. I mean, there's no. There's enough people you would know it. So with my first name, so it's pronounced Caesar, but admittedly you get Cesar. You get all the variations. Even instead of Caesar, they say Caesar, which is okay. But then Alcazab, which actually I remember being quite nervous when I started off because I would say, oh, if you can't pronounce it, don't say it. And then an MC once was like, it's Alcazab. It's so easy. Alcazab. You literally looked at it and went, how does anyone not see that?
It's got the double S, so it literally tells you how to pronounce it.
Yeah, and this is the best part. But the thing was, when I looked at people's, the way they said it, they go Alaka, and then the end, they will make it up. So it's been Alaka's sad, Alakasaba, Alaka, and then they'll combine stuff. They'll say Azkaban, just they'll jumble up the letters.
Yeah, just stuff from Harry Potter.
I would get it if maybe they didn't introduce, like, if they just read it off a name and didn't know. But most of the times at gigs, you meet the person. Hi, how do I pronounce your name? Whatever. And I remember one time, and this is very early on, maybe the first time I actually did a pro night, because the headliner was Zoe Lyons.
Oh, cool.
And again, it had like real top acts. It was in Peterborough. Can't remember the MC's name, but I haven't seen him on the circuit since. So I'm guessing he's that type of MC,
right?
Where he'll just maybe do
just
one in a year type of thing.
Yeah.
And even before, where I was kind of, we're all in the sort of seating area for comedians, and I was a couple years in. I think I just finished university, so I'm I think I just like maybe 3 years in, 4 years in. And I'm just doing stuff. I was like, and then I was telling him, I said, I did a gig, like probably the longest I've ever done is maybe like 12 minutes back in. He goes, 12? It's 5, 10, 15. I was like, I think I was booked for 15. I only had 12. They gave me the bet, like, something like that. It's like, who's gonna care? So he was that type of person, like very pedantic about stuff. And then
but also,
before he goes on stage,
I've done 7-minute sets. I've done 3-minute sets. I've done like 17 or 18-minute sets. It's not just 5, 10, 15, 20. That's not.
Well, that gives you the idea of the level he's at.
Yeah.
As I said before, can't remember his name. Never seen him on the circuit before. Never seen him since. So
he'd been dead all along. He was a ghost.
Yeah. I don't think he even existed. Before I go on the stage, he said, remind me of your name. He goes, Caesar Alcazab. If you can't say Alcazab, just say Caesar. Caesar, a great name, easy to say. The crowd don't really care anyway who I am.
Yeah.
Because you can really say Tom Jones and they're still going to have the same reaction.
Yeah.
And then he goes, Caesar, I've never heard of him either. And you just go, you're supposed to be on my side? like you're supposed to support like at least if the audience member said I've never heard of them, fair enough. The audience member, the audience is echo, but you're the MC. You've basically destroyed my confidence before it started, and brought me on to an awkward beginning of hi. You don't know who I am, and I'm there. And luckily enough, I when I got off, I think I only did 5 minutes anyway because it was very much an open spot on a pro bill, and the booker was like, "Good material, keep going," and then he just like that was it really, and it was one of those. It was like a pub, a small pub in Peterborough where people were eating and watching comedy. So you're talking to people's backs at the same time. Like they're turning around to watch you, but they're obviously facing their food. The only good thing about that night was it was an open bar and kitchen for the acts.
Nice.
And I didn't get paid, but I got paid in rum and coke. That's how whenever there's an open bar for comedians, I've always made my annual quota in alcohol. So yeah, even though I'm not making the big bucks, I would have spent that money on the same amount of alcohol I've drank over the years. Yeah. So yeah, it's again, I mean, these kind of stories when it comes to names, I'm like, I've always think myself of like either having the spelling different or the surname different, but at the same time, I just stuck with it. I was like, you're gonna learn it, or it doesn't really matter because again, when I go abroad, when I go to like venues that count, they all pronounce it correctly, and the audiences again, they don't care what my name is, they just want a funny show, and that's what they get. So
that's the thing, because I always make a point of saying to MCs that if I don't already know them, I'll just say, it's pronounced Deves, by the way, and I would say like 9 times out of 10 they say, oh, obviously. Okay, fair enough.
No, I think either because of dyslexia and sometimes just a slip of the tongue.
Yeah.
It could be like maybe Dave's or again like Davis, which is a more common name.
I get Davies, Divas, but that's more so people on the phone.
But yeah, like I think Sai is only one way of saying it. And again, it really with the names like that, I always think to myself, it doesn't really matter. Like just your next act is this name, and then they bring on, unless it is like maybe they're recording something and they need the name in it.
Yeah.
Honestly, you can literally walk on to your next comedian is a comedian, and then walk on. It's like,
if I can't remember someone's name, my favourite thing to do is just get the audience clapping so loud before I introduce them, and I just go, sort of put your hand out.
I've done that a few times.
Yeah,
I've done that, especially when I'm emceeing like an open mic. You've got to like get through a lot of it, and it's like, all right, nice, welcome away. You just add on a big cheer to the end of it.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think there's that, but also with acts and performing it, whenever you get the before I say your name, should I mention any credits? And you're like, nah, just this, like. They're not gonna like someone had that one, and your next act, filmmaker, director, and they said like, do you have any credits? I was like, well, I've just made a film, and then they went on and did like, and this next act, he's recently made a film, probably not porno. Whoa, why did you add on the joke? Like now I gotta go on and do the old I'm not a sleazy guy routine for that. I mean, what? Just say what Caesar, I told you to say. You know what I mean? Yeah. There's only been one time where a guy afterwards said, oh, and Caesar film recently won an award. And he goes, what was the award, Caesar? And then I kind of said it. And then I was like, yeah, cool. And a few people were like, but that's afterwards.
Yeah.
Before, like, no, we don't give a crap.
Like if you're ever emceeing like an open mic gig or whatever, and someone's doing their first set, like first ever gig, then always say it after as well. Like that's the amount of people that will say, and this is their first ever gig, so be nice to them. And like that's going to remind them before they're walking on stage, like, oh, this is my first gig. And like you just see people crumble.
I used to help out at the Lions Den. I used to be the doorman there for a year or two, whereas I was starting out as stand-up.
Yeah.
And we made a big deal, like in that time when Tim Rendell, who's no longer around, he passed away.
Yeah.
He made a big deal about first timers because you would shout first time and you would have this enthusiasm and you would cheer them on and stuff, and it
Oh,
would
okay.
give them that confidence of like, oh, this is a lovely place. So there's that with the first time, but also there's the like bring someone on well because of that story that I told you about where the guy said, oh, it doesn't really I've never heard of him either, because that happened so early on. I made a big deal whenever I would introduce people to introduce them in a nicer way possible,
Yeah.
and to make sure that they're prepared to be on. Which I think sometimes when I might have said like something and the act goes, oh, I wasn't even ready. I'm like, well, sharpen up, mate. But in
Yeah.
most cases, because you know you're third or you're fourth or whatever, in most cases I try and bring them on and make them really comfortable because they have to go home. I mean, and they might, all it takes is that one person to be shitty to them and they never
Yeah.
do stand up again. So yeah, I do think that sometimes that probably happens way more often a lot where people talk about people and they'll say stuff. I mean, we hear it all the time and stuff like that. There's loads of promoters that are just terrible with the acts, and you're like,
Oh, yeah.
how are you in this profession?
Yeah.
Like,
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I told a story a little while ago of a certain, and I bleeped it out at the time, and I'll bleep it out again now. It's,
I was gonna say his name,
yeah.
and I didn't because I thought I don't want to put you in hot water. But
Oh,
yeah,
that's
you
right.
can
No,
keep him in if it's for my sake.
I'll bleep it.
Yeah.
Yeah, he introduced me to stage after berating two guys for being gay when they weren't gay. They were just mates at this. But I mean, they could have been gay. Don't know. Not relevant because they weren't together. They'd just gone to go and watch this horrible gig, and he introduced me to stage, having forgotten that I was there at all. And then he saw me sitting there and went, "Oh yeah, one more act. I used to be gay until I saw him, Cy Deves," and I was like,
That's actually one of his better ones.
yeah.
That's actually, my one with this person
Well
is
done.
when I first did their show, very very strong in the pronoun game.
Yeah.
When I first did their show, hey, Caesar Al-Qasab, and it's the same thing was Caesar all these foreigners with their bloody names, and again I think it might have been like fifth gig, sixth gig, definitely like early on.
Yeah.
And granted, even if he introduced me to a round of applause, I would have bombed anyway. Like my material then, when I first started out, was really dark,
Yeah.
and really just offensive and taboo, and just basically, just being young and being able to say what I want and that kind of like freedom thing. But regardless, I was like, Jesus Christ, like what the hell was that? And then I was like, okay, next time I go on, I'm gonna bring friends with me because he had a go at me for not bringing anyone. I arrived with Sarah Callahan, another comedian.
Yes.
We started out at the same time, so I arrived with her, and then it was like any bringers with you, and they were, I think, they thought I was like their bringer or she was mine because I don't think we'd ever been there before. But no, like we're both comedians, and then afterwards it was like, oh, you gotta bring people, man. Like, they didn't say it that way, obviously. You gotta bring people, man. That's not how he talks. I went back to he. That's not how they talk. So
no.
I was like, okay, next time I've got my mates at uni. I'm gonna say, please come along, and I think people came along for that. I had been better polished by then as a comedian. I had like a good 5 minutes that I was working in more clubs.
Yeah.
It was cleaner as well. I was like, let me do something cleaner, and went there, did really well. Brought the people in, so he was nice to me in the beginning.
Yeah.
Was watching the opening act was the MC that knew me, so he was encouraging. He was like, "Oh, you're gonna do great, mate, whatever." And then the opening act, who was a white English male, he got the same introduction I got, which was blah blah blah, James. Oh, these foreigners, and I thought that's just who he is.
Yeah,
He just says stuff. It's not personal. So once that element calmed down on me and I did much better, he was nicer to me the second time and actually booked me again. So I was like, okay, that's who he is. But then you hear about the other stories, which you can hear. I'll let you tell them because I don't want to get too dark on the podcast.
I'll tell my favourite one.
Yeah, go on.
My favourite one is I wasn't there for this, but I heard that he nipped off during someone's act, and during their set, I think they were doing like a longer set, Well, hopefully. And they were like, where has he gone? They were trying to work it out, and then they heard him having sex in a like closet next to the stage. He was having sex
who,
with some
though?
woman.
That's
Don't know.
the sad part. I mean, yeah. Well, I mean, yeah. I've heard
Sorry,
enough.
they were having sex.
Yes, they were. Yeah, it usually takes they to do it. It might even been they by themselves.
Yeah.
Knowing who this person is, but yeah, no, they probably paid for it, but I've heard enough stories where it was outside the context of a comedy club and they were still inappropriate and stuff. And again, they obviously defend themselves, but I was like, I just don't want to go back there.
Yeah.
And to be fair, I might go back if I think, well, if it's still running and people are still going back, then why should I not? So I always have that kind of thing of like, well,
Yeah.
is that just a really bad act? Because it is a really bad act.
Oh, it's terrible.
But I remember the last time I was there, I was on, and then it was just comedians live. And what's funny was comedians were trying to run off because he was in it was a smaller room,
right?
And he was sitting sort of like the stage was to his right of his eye, and the door was in front of his eye, like in front of his face. So he couldn't really like just walk out behind like you might do in another venue. He had his eye on the door, and people were kind of forced to stay behind, or like he would put you on last to force you to be to stay behind.
Yeah.
And I remember doing the set, kind of ending it, kind of being like, well, this is time we've all spent together. That kind of like passive aggressive, sarcastic thing. And everyone kind of laughed and stuff. And I don't think he even cares. It's an open mic, it's unpaid. But as I walked off, having done my set, Louis Schaefer, do you know who he is?
Yeah. He was the first one I did. That's the only time I've seen him.
I walked up, Louis Schaefer goes, "You're really funny. Keep going. Well done." And then I was like, "Oh, thanks. Thank you." And then I kind of watched his set and afterwards. And then months later, he was doing a preview where I was on in the opening section. And he was previewing his Edinburgh show in the second section. And he was doing some crowd work. And then he goes, "You're a comic, right? You were on tonight?" And I goes, "Yeah." He goes, "Yeah, I remember you. You're a really funny guy." I'm like, really kind of you to say in your act halfway through. Like he obviously was doing incredible. So there is not so the more times you do go to these places where other comedians are there, it's good sometimes to be with comedians. Because even that gig where I was with you, that booking agency isn't great, but I get to hang out with you. So there's sometimes where there's perks of it as well. Like we've done loads of gigs where it's just like, well, this is not bad. This is not a bad place to be. Like whether it was, like there's some of these towns, like you have to be in a car for ages, and you're like, all right, who's in the car with who? Great. Like that's the only times when you're like, yep, great, happy to be there. Other times you're like, okay.
I mean, one of my favorite car journeys to my memory was the one where it was you, me, Adam Morrison, and the late great Chris Joyce, and that was a very very funny. I'll never forget.
Funnier than the gig.
Yeah, it was. Yeah. And stopping on the side of the motorway for like three of us to do a wee.
Yeah, and what's hilarious about that was we were all sort of competing against each other.
Yeah.
But at the same time supporting each other, which was the nicest part of it, because a lot of times you don't really get that. You've done like competitions and stuff where like I remember one time doing a competition. I think it was Golden Gestures, where it was the audience voting, and then Matt Smith with his like shitstorm band was on, and he done everyone was getting into it because it's like really crowd work and stuff, and then one person wasn't getting involved, and you're like, all right, fair enough, not for everyone. Then that person was an act, and you're like, well, hold on, like you can at least join in the fun.
To show solidarity.
Yeah, and with Bath as well, it was kind of cool because people obviously you travel from all parts to get there, so sometimes you're like, oh, how was your card ride? Our card ride was such because we were on. I remember Saskia Preston was on that bill.
Oh yeah.
Who else was on it? Oh, it was the guy from the Welsh comedian. I'm trying to remember his name.
Jethro Bradley. Is that a name?
Yes, Jethro. That was it.
Yeah.
He was on, and I remember even like Chris Joyce didn't win the round, but we were all like, Chris should have won it because he had his Dance to Win song
Yeah.
And you're like, as soon as he plays that, you're like, well, I've lost.
Yeah.
Like you would hope he did stand up and just maybe got some nerves on the day, but no, on that keyboard, he's there. He's like just smashing
He
every
was
time. And
incredible.
yeah, it's so sad that he's gone. That was that period of like maybe 2014 to 2016 was probably the best ever. No, 2014, 2015,
Yeah.
2016 as well, as far as when you're just doing so many gigs and 90% of them were traveling. So you're getting these car journeys and whatever and stuff. And it was, or you do like 3 a night, 4, you do like some ridiculous stuff, 5 a week, 6 a week. And that's the kind of thing where, really mess because you can only do it for a short spell. I don't know about you, but I definitely burn out fast when I do 6 a week, 7 a week.
I do these
and
days,
it's traveling involved. I mean, if it's 6 a week and it's local, then obviously, yeah, but it's always like, and then 3-hour journey there, and then 4-hour journey there, and then so it's the lack of sleep more than the actual commitment.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, because you have where's your work now that we're pandemic and
I'm
badness?
Working in Screwfix.
Oh, cool. All right, so you just settled at least. You're not like
freelancing. No, it's all right. Yeah, I'm trying to write a sitcom as well.
Yeah, I had so in that time when I was really gigging, I actually did like a sales job where it was like proper 9 to 5 shirt and everything else.
Yeah,
where you have to like do it, and truly hated the day job and was like, oh my god. So stand up was like I'd just book annual leave to do stand up.
Yeah,
and then since just before 2020, I with the company that I'm in now, which I was doing sales, I moved to do graphic design, which is my main skill set.
Oh, cool.
And then that's been really cool because one, it was an easy job as far as I didn't have the same pressures as like sales. And at the same time, it was creative job. So at least, you can not go insane as far as like boring admin. But with stand up, when the pandemic ended, I really found evenings difficult. I don't know what it was like for you. Were you working though? Was that how you kept busy?
What, before lockdown, do you mean?
No, like during lockdown, essentially, when there was no stand up to do.
No, I was just like I was doing the odd sort of like panel show like online. I was just trying to write stuff and like do podcasts and that. But yeah, I was on furlough, so I wasn't doing anything.
Yeah, no, I found it so strange in the evenings when you're sitting there like, okay, what do people do?
Is it what do people do in the evenings?
The online stuff was fun only for the comedian. Like when you have that kind of chat with the comedians before the gig starts and you're laughing, you're catching up with them. But then as the Zoom starts, I remember doing a few, and one I did where I'm like, these people aren't really paying attention. Like, you can tell they're watching something in the background, or they're eating their dinner,
playing with the dog,
or they're, it's a laptop. So essentially, it's not the most visually stimulating thing that they actually need to be staring at the screen. So it was okay as far as maybe just testing the water with some ideas and being like, okay, something there, put it in the back burner.
Yeah.
Keep it ready for when you're back. But what I mainly did, so in the beginning of the pandemic, where it was lock, don't go out, don't breathe, don't do anything.
Yeah.
I actually enjoyed it because it was like a rest period.
Yeah.
It was like, I can just sit at home and you play video games, you watch Netflix, you catch up on all the TV. So the first month is actually kind of fun because it's almost like a holiday, like a forced holiday on you. But once it got to the, I need sunlight, I need to move, I need to do all that stuff. What I really got into, because I didn't have stand-up, I just wrote screenplays.
Yeah.
And I was watching like foreign films and stuff like that because I finally had the time to put the attention in it. But even then, it was, because I'm quite an active person. Like I'll play football, I'll go out, I'll play basketball, I'll do all that stuff. Yeah, that was when you're sitting there and just like fucking away. So from where I was living before, near Ealing, which is like west of London, like zone 4 of west of London, there's nothing to do. It's residential, so it was fine getting a central line in and out of the city. But as soon as that option is gone, you're stuck in that area. You're like, I'm stuck in this apartment. I'm stuck in this 1-bedroom place.
Yeah.
So I basically was like, all right, I need to move, which I already had in my mind, but I'm going to push this even further. And then trying to sell an apartment is the hardest thing ever. I don't know if because you've bought your place now, haven't you?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. So selling it is going to even that because people come in and go, "Oh, I want to live here," and you're like, "Why? I live here, so thanks for that." Like it's
fine.
just yeah, like it's fine. Like I'm alive and
Yeah.
stuff, and then they're like, "I don't like the area. This is so boring," and you're like, "Yeah," and then they'd ask you questions of like, "Why are you moving?" Because they assume there's a problem with it,
Yeah.
and you're like, "No, I'm moving because I for work. I just say work purposes. We've moved location. I have to move location. Like something they can't really argue with."
Yeah.
But here, where my new location is far more social. You go outside, there's people, there's a massive park with hundreds of people there. As I said, I play basketball, play football. I learned how to ride a bike. So when I moved here, I never knew how to ride a bike.
Really?
So outside my street is the Santander bikes for you just rent them out.
Right, okay.
And I just said, right,
is that
get
what
on it. And I remember
have the Boris bikes changed name now? Is that what they are?
yeah, well, yeah, I guess technically they're still Boris bikes because there used to be Barclays.
Oh, really?
Now they're Santander. But technically they're still Boris bikes because he came up with the idea.
Yeah.
But I think being that Boris is who he is, people no longer want to say his name.
Yeah. Dickhead bike.
Because I think it's fine when he was low level, all the faults he had, no one really cared, and then you realize, oh wait a minute, we should have punished him way earlier.
Yeah. You can laugh about it when it doesn't seem like a threat.
Yeah, same as the Labour. I mean, Labour should have just redone their whole structure because I don't know about you, but in the last election when we had to vote, I went to the poll, looked at all the names, and thought, no, just walked out.
Yeah,
so I just can't put my tick next to any of these people.
That's it. My wife and I went through we just researched everyone that was like being shown as a candidate, and we would just say, well, who's the least shit one? Like there was someone sent a canvassing leaflet through our door who said they wanted to ban spy cars from like West Shoebury, and what she meant was like the parking enforcement vehicles, the ones that got cameras on top. Yeah. She thinks they're spy cars, and I was like, well, I'm not. Like she had other things that were like that policies that looked sort of decent. But I just thought, I can't trust someone that thinks
someone describes it as a spy car, you know that they're not.
No, thank you.
They're on a different wavelength.
Yeah.
No, I always think about it like, who would I invite to my home? I'm like, I wouldn't invite any of these people to my home. No. Like, I don't, like, who do I think considers like a moral, decent, good person? Like, ignore that. I mean, you can get better at your job, but you can get better at your morals. You either have them or you don't. So. I mean, especially at this level, I'm not talking like you have to be Mother Teresa, but at least be, a decent human being.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I'll add solicitors to the list of people that are not decent because they're horrible. But that was essentially my lockdown, was trying to move, and then finally moving to was doing all the stuff that I never really got to do. So even when we go back to like comedy admin and booking all this stuff, I left it kind of late, which I'm fine with because it's now the sun's back. I mean, being inside a pub and telling jokes isn't really the highlight of my time. I'd rather do that in September when it's a bit rainy and I don't mind being indoors. I've got a good gig tonight. But again, it's just like, I have other options now. And from the experience that I had before the pandemic where I wasn't gigging as much, but the gigs mattered.
Yeah.
I was able to build the same amount of material because again, there's no way of saying this without sounding arrogant, but I have a good sense of what's funny as far as like,
yeah, of course.
Okay, I can make this work or whatever. And I'm kind of like a one-trick pony. I don't do too much out of my wheelhouse. I'm not going to start all of a sudden doing like cabaret or anything like that.
Yeah.
So, I'm not going to try and enter music anytime soon. So, yeah, I think make the gigs count and find funny elsewhere, because I think with podcasts and stuff like that, you do get a chance to certainly find stuff out.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. You get to sort of discuss stuff, and you can have it's nice having podcasts because it's the green room chats that you've been missing.
Well, before we go off, I was telling you how now that I'm in this new place, I was like learning new stuff.
Oh, that's right.
One of them was riding a bike, and getting on that bike and all of a sudden, just being able to balance and stuff. The same fear and anxiety as when you're like first time walking on stage, first time doing this.
Yeah.
But also there's that kind of embarrassment of being like 30 on a bike, not knowing what, and people looking at you going, are you okay? Like you're wobbling
Yeah.
constantly. And I guess someone might have thought I was like drunk or hungover or something like that because of just how badly I was cycling. And but eventually, just learned, and now I cycle. I don't cycle far though, but I still I can now, go from point A to point B if it's very short.
Yeah.
Because we're in London, so I ain't risking. I mean, I'm not going into like rush hour traffic.
Yeah.
That's mental.
Yeah, a friend of mine he cycles, like he lives in North London and he works it's pretty much central London. And he said that he said something about getting knocked off his bike and I was like, oh my God, are you okay? And he said, oh, yeah, no, it just happens. So, and then just carry on. But like, oh, it was a bad one the other day. And I was like, what do you mean it just happened? Like, that's not something you should just accept in your life. Just like, oh yeah, get knocked off now and then. It sounds horrendous.
Because I have a driving license, I have sort of a bit more respect for the road as far as like, mirror signal, whatever. So you still have that kind of, okay, I'm approaching a road. A car might come out anytime. Let me look in, let me slow down. Okay, cycle away. And what's weird about it is you get a little bit more respect for cyclists. And I saw a guy just getting knocked over by a car. His bike completely just fell over. His phone slid.
Oh.
He was really like, he got up and took a minute to like sort of, when you sort of like you stretch off the pain.
Yeah.
Where you're just moving your body around to sort of like get back into shape. It felt like it really gave him a good thumping. So he gets up and stuff. And then he comes up to me. He goes, oh, mate, can you just do me a favor? Can you just grab that bike and put it on the road? Grab the bike, put it on the road and stuff. I was like, you okay? And then I was like, yeah. It was like, he was just trying to like, pull himself together.
Yeah.
And I was like, yeah, man, I know how you feel. I can ride a bike too. Like, and the thing was, like the arrogance of me going like, yeah, I can now ride bikes. Like, I totally get you. Like, like, I've only been riding a bike for like 2 weeks.
Amazing.
He looked at me like, what an idiot.
Oh, incredible. Sometimes during conversations, I don't know if you've seen, I do like little snippet videos of sort of funny moments. And sometimes someone will say something and I'll be like, oh, there it is. That's the... That is the snippet that's coming out of that. That's so funny.
Oh, thank you. That's very flattering. I might, yeah. Well, that's something to keep for future use.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Yeah. That's a very funny story. Yeah. Oh, in that case, if you're going to use it as material, then I won't burn it.
No. Go ahead. I don't mind. The more the merrier. People will get to know me. I'll use that when booking it.
Yeah.
I'll be like, here's a clip. And
yeah. Conversationally, very funny.
I'm like, no, he's not. He died in his arse. Yeah. Like, yeah, well, so did I, mate. Yeah.
Oh, that's funny.
Yeah, no.
So what have you been doing? What were you doing during the lockdown? Were you just working from home?
You're working from home, which was really nice. I got used to it. I've always been a person. So my previous job, when I first like got into office work 9 to 5, I hated it. So the kind of dream of comedy wasn't so much fame, but more fortune to basically retire early because I hated day jobs. I'm not fussed about fame anymore, but boy, if I can just not work, that would be great.
Yeah, that'd be nice.
And then now that I have a day job, which I do enjoy, and I work from home, I now just want to stay at home because I'm like, well, why get up at 8 o'clock when I can get up at 9 o'clock and just be right at my desk? Because I've got the space for it and everything. But in terms of the hours and everything else, it was good. As I said, I was writing screenplays. So what I would do is basically treat it like kind of film school. Yeah. Watch all these movies, get really inspired, and watch all stuff that I really should have been watching much earlier on. But because when I was starting out, I was doing stand up, doing university, trying to get your day job in order, trying to go out and have a social life, trying to date, trying to do this, trying to do that. To sit around and watch, 2.5 long Italian movies or French movies is, you ain't gonna do it. Now with the lockdown, you watch all of
it's a gift.
Federico Fellini and all John Godard and all these great filmmakers of like the 60s and
other
50s
people I haven't heard of. Sure,
never heard of them, and yet they're the ones that influenced the Tarantinos and the Scorseses.
Oh, really?
So I'm watching a lot of that, and what was amazing was I saw almost a new type of way to be creative because of their filming techniques, and wrote I initially had a bunch of ideas. I was gonna like do maybe an animation and stuff because I liked it. Then I thought, you know what? For the time put in, you're not getting a lot out of it. With animation, you really need to be, it takes a lot of hours to get a minute of footage.
Yeah.
So I was okay. I really fell back in love with filmmaking. Maybe I can do that when the lockdown ends. And I texted a few friends. So I was like, I think I texted like Nico and Dane and stuff. I was like, if I write you something, would you be in it? They were like, yeah. So I kind of give me the encouragement to be like, all right, well, now that I've told someone, at least I have a direction. And I wrote different stories and then threw it away. So I must have written like hundreds of pages, which will never see the light of day. But then I wrote 6 episodes, which is kind of like a web series type of thing, because there is obviously they're connected. But I treated it like a music album where like each song is completely different, but they're all part of the album, because I had so many ideas. I didn't really know what to do. I didn't want to do a big movie because I've done that before. And I thought to myself, I have too many different ideas. I don't have one idea that lasts that long in terms of length.
Yeah.
And when I was watching all these foreign films, I was like, I can do a little bit of everything. I don't need to do the mainstream thing that everyone else is doing. I can think outside the box and be creative. So that was kind of fun. That kind of get me going, kept me alive in many ways, because your brain's working.
Yeah.
And you have something to work towards as far as like a goal, and you have a vision. Because honestly, I mean, I was so isolated, not to go into a dark path, but where I was living by myself, which I still do, but at least I'm in an area where I can walk out and see people.
Yeah.
Even if it's strangers, I can see strangers, in the park. Whereas over there, I didn't see anyone other than like a supermarket. And then, comedians, if we're not gigging together, we're not chatting on a daily basis.
Yeah.
I mean, I have like 1 or 2 people I might chat with on a daily basis, but you can't bother them all the time. And it was awkward when you ask people, how is your day? And you're like, well, someone be like, I'm on furlong, then I don't know how I'm going to pay my bills. And you're like, well, I'm just bored. It's hard to, I'd rather not talk to you because, it's not the same. It was too awkward. It was a really rough time. People were going through, some people hadn't seen their families. Some people couldn't do this, do that. So I just avoided certain people out of respect. And people avoided me, which made me go, all right, I'm cutting ties with you because I'm reaching out to you and you're giving me the cold shoulder.
Yeah.
So over the kind of year from like March of 2020 to the end of the year, it really was trying to be as creative as possible, trying to move apartment, trying to get this flat sold and going into places, and then just powering through work. And there are some perks, obviously, when you're home. I can cook, so I was treating myself to some nice meals and stuff. I wasn't going out and no more Costa coffees, no more this and that. So you kind of put it towards good uses.
Yeah.
But in general, I look at it as more of just a time of perspective of like, okay, kind of, it was meant to be what was meant to be the last of my 20s of like, I'm going to have this like 29, I'm going to go out, travel, see all these people, see all these things.
Yeah.
Obviously became a pandemic, but now I'm in a much better place in every aspect, financially, emotionally, blah, 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 like physically.
Yeah.
So I look at it like I have these scripts that are ready to be made, and I'm ready to get back on stage and tell all these jokes that I've written and I'm excited about. Because I think when you're in the zone and I had a solo show that I had, and I was just doing that. So I really was just doing the same stuff over and over again. And now I've got new material again. It's exciting. And yeah, but what about you? Or have you told it in every other episode? Once again,
no, to
I
some
am
extent.
repeating myself.
No, I haven't really. Because I went on to furlough and sort of I quite enjoyed it for a little while. Like you say, it was sort of a bit of a break, a gifted holiday. And I sort of, because the first 2 days that we were on furlough were my normal days off anyway. So I was like, I'm just going to treat my normal days off and do nothing. But then the problem is it got to the 3rd day and I was like, I might still just do nothing. So I did nothing for a little while. But then while I was out on my walks with my now wife, she just said to me one day, because I've been trying to think of how to write a sitcom that had been like sort of buzzing around in my head for ages. Although I was going to write it as a film, and then in a conversation with someone, they said, "Sounds like it could be a sitcom." And I started writing it, and I was like, oh yeah, I think it is actually.
Well, it could be anything nowadays. I mean, I was watching the latest season of Master of None.
Oh,
First
okay.
episode, 50 minutes. Second episode, I think 50 minutes, then 20, then 20, then back to 50. And Louis C.K. did this for his web series, the Horace and Pete, where every episode was a different duration.
Right.
And now, you know, the days of every episode being 20 minutes or 50 minutes if it's a drama, whatever,
Yeah.
are long gone, because they did that because of advert breaks.
Right.
You would
Yeah,
have,
of course,
if it was like, you know, your classic Simpsons episode, 15 advert break, 15, you know, it would break up. So you do it in the 30-minute TV airtime, TV guide. And obviously if it's a 1 hour for because of commercial breaks.
Yeah.
Now with Netflix, doesn't really matter. All you're doing is just like, it's like a chapter in a book.
Yeah.
Some chapters 10 pages, other chapters 20 pages.
It's like Mandalorian. Like one episode was like 50 minutes, the next one's like 35. And then there was Jupiter's Legacy is the new one out on Netflix, and I watched it last week. It's fine. It's all right. It's pretty enjoyable. But like they were going, I think they were largely around sort of 30 to 40 minutes. And then there was like, it was building up and up and up. And like the penultimate episode was like 52 minutes or something like that. And then the final episode was 33. But it was, you know, they told the story that they needed to tell. And I think that is that's something that's missing from a lot of TV, where they're given sort of specific length of time or specific amounts of episodes to do. Sometimes they'll drag it out and it just lasts and lasts and lasts. And it's, you know, it's boring.
Yeah, that's with the same writing process I had initially thought, let me do one short film as a pilot and then maybe send it to some companies. And then afterwards, I was like, what is the point? For the same amount of money and effort and time, I can do the whole thing by myself. Because if this movie is an hour 20 and I broke that up into segments, I have essentially, you know, a couple of episodes in there.
Yeah.
So I know how to produce something of quality for a long period of time. And then when I was writing it even, I just kept getting it tighter and tighter, to the point where, you know, I was obviously writing a bunch of stuff and then looking at it going, wait a minute, if I actually finance this would cost me, and started killing characters off and then maximizing stuff. And then once I was watching all the foreign films, because most of them are low budget in comparison to, they're not low budget, but they are compared to like American movies, these big blockbusters. You know, how do they get so much out of it, out of like one location, out of one scene, and then so, you know, you expand on the character. And I had one episode which I wanted to do as a foreign film. I was going to do it in Arabic because I can speak Arabic, and I thought, well, that'd be kind of fun just to try something completely different. Yeah. But the casting was so hard because it's so hard to find. I mean, there are Arabic actors that are young and in the 20s now, right, that might know it. But of older you know, if you want to get a wide range cast, I just couldn't get the right fit. So I essentially cut that episode out and just made it a 5-part. And I was like, is 5-part too short? And then, as I mentioned, season 3 is 5 episodes. So I'm like, well, no. I mean, if 5 episodes is good enough for Netflix, then it's good enough for me.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And again, just make it. I haven't thought about anything other than just make it and make it my way. And then a bit like this, in a way, where I took it to film festivals. You can't really do that for TV shows, but nowadays you have shows on YouTube, on Instagram, where like it's a show. I mean, they will upload episode after episode onto it, like you know, anything else. I think Netflix has a YouTube channel where that's where they showed the Chappelle 846
cool, yeah,
video. They have a Netflix channel where they'll actually have an entire season on it. Like, it might not be because of the country. I think it's South African production. So in order to get past the restrictions of certain countries, they put it on YouTube rather than because we have Netflix UK. Yeah. And there's Netflix US and there's Netflix France. But on YouTube, it's YouTube. Yeah. Because it's one channel. So we're all watching the same stuff. So to get past the restrictions, they'll chuck it on their YouTube channel. I think they've done that with a few shows. Cobra Kai, that started as a YouTube show.
Did it really?
Yeah. I think its first season was on YouTube. It blew, everyone watched it, and then Netflix bought. I think Netflix bought the streaming, and when it went to season 3, it was still YouTube money,
Right.
and I think season 4 is Netflix money. But essentially, that came off of YouTube, where it was just some guy who just went on. It's a YouTube original.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
obviously there's YouTube money involved, because once they got the cast and everything, they got. But again, in terms of the audience point of view, you first saw it on YouTube before you saw it anywhere else. And that's kind of cool.
Yeah. Nice, man. So I asked you if you had a tea before we started recording this, and
Yes.
and you said, "Oh no, I've got a coffee. Is that okay?" And then I made you feel really bad about it, and you went and made a tea. And this is the first time we've brought it up. I did think before we started that what you might find upsetting is how little this is about tea, and you absolutely could have just had a coffee. I wouldn't have known.
Here's the thing. Because I've seen the clips that you put up that you mentioned before. I've seen them, and I was like, you do like a little shot and stuff. I thought, well, no one knows what's in that mug.
Yeah.
No one's gonna care. And I thought, well,
here's the secret. Mine are normally empty.
Yeah. And then
when I take the photo, I did have a tea.
We didn't drink it during the show, so now it's just sitting there.
Yeah.
So I was like, oh, we're gonna drink tea and have a drink, but we didn't have a single sip during this entire recording.
No, I drank mine.
But yeah, I had it. I mean, I made a tea.
Yeah.
It was Tetley tea, which just happened to be in my home because my parents were here last week
to
see the new place. And my family are obsessed with tea.
Are they?
Like obsessed. Oh, obsessed. My mother, she can't live without tea. So tea is a big thing in Asian culture and South Asian culture and Middle Eastern culture and stuff like that. It's like, it's our morning drink. It's our after lunchtime drink. After a meal, you have a cup of tea. Or maybe in Italian culture, it's a coffee. But, tea is a big thing. And I grew up like, put the kettle on, put the brew on, and we would brew proper tea leaves as opposed to the bag.
Yeah.
And like really get it out. So I never liked hot drinks anyway. Like I grew up and everyone would have tea, and then they would know I don't drink tea because it was like hot drink, and it didn't. I mean, I think as a kid, I don't think you would like tea as a kid.
No. Well, some people have done. It's really caught me off guard. Like someone said that they were drinking tea at 5, and I thought, no, it's too early. I think I had my first tea when I was about 15.
Yeah, no, I mean, I've tasted tea at like that age, maybe because I just saw my mom have it. I was like, oh, I want to try some.
Yeah.
And like my grandmom would pour some into like a little saucer and then let me drink the tea out of that.
Yeah. That's how people used to drink tea, actually. That's why they had saucers. They'd sort of swirl the cup around and let some tea fall out, and they'd drink it off the saucer. That used to be the polite way of doing it.
That's sort of how they did it. And they would have particular glasses. My grandmom, who's no longer with us, she would have a small glass that's really thin. I mean, she would drink 5 glasses out of it. So obviously it was more just maybe like the quantity amount, and for sugar cubes as opposed to spoonfuls.
Yeah.
And I was never into hot drinks anyway. Even like hot chocolate, I would wait for it to cool down. But which is obviously like a sugary drink. And then once I got into like proper office work, I would make teas and make coffees. As like that's a good way of getting in with your boss.
Yeah.
But I would never have one. And if someone made me one, I'd just wait to get cold, have a couple of sips, and chuck it out.
Pour it in a plum.
In this office I'm working at now, my colleagues were into coffee, and they would have like coffee. And while they had coffee, I would just have water. But over time, it would be like, I'll have a latte, whatever. Because I think when you get to this age, you kind of need a coffee now as part of your routine. Because I think you get to an age where Red Bull is embarrassing. Like if you have a Red Bull at like 30, you're white trash. I'm sorry, but that is what you.
I work with a lot of people who are just obsessed with like they all drink Monster. Like
I still do that, to be fair, but I'm white trash. So
yeah, yeah. But he drinks like 4 cans of Monster in a shift.
4.
Yeah.
Oh no! When I used to work in HMV, when I just graduated university, first job I got was HMV, and I would just stack shelves, whatever.
Yeah.
And I would do long shifts because that's all I had in my life. So I'd be like, as many hours as possible. I need the money because all went to rent, and to get by was just Red Bull. Buy a massive case, Red Bull, and they were like, "Are you?" I was like, "To be fair, I just need to keep going." But now with coffee, it got to like, okay, latte with sugar and then latte and then just espresso with sugar and then espresso. And then now I have a coffee machine where I
Yeah.
can just make, and I'm very particular about what brand I use and everything else. So I like a coffee, but even with, because I don't do sugar, I just have an espresso. So if it's too bitter, I'll drink it like medicine where I'll go, "Nah, nah," and then just wash it down with some water.
Drink it because it's
But
necessary.
but yeah, I definitely need the caffeine. It's
Yeah.
more the caffeine than the taste. I don't. I think coffee really. I mean, there are nice coffees, but they probably have mixed it with some cacao or something like that.
Yeah.
But in general, hot drinks I don't really do. Other than I have maybe hot water and lemon for like after a gig
Yeah.
because of your throat. Because you don't. I mean, same with podcasting. You don't realize how much your throat muscles and everything else when you're
No,
talking. And
absolutely.
sometimes at a gig you might be like shouty or
Yeah.
talking a little bit over the you're showing a bit of excitement and stuff. And then afterwards you're like, Jesus Christ, why could have just wrote it down and texted to them.
Yeah. Yeah. I went and did a pub quiz last night, and they had loud music on, and I woke up today and my voice just ached. I was like,
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
I've had that a few times where I was just like, why? Oh my God, why
Everything's
do
so
we
loud.
scream at each other?
Yeah. I used to do that all
Also,
the time.
turn the music down. We're all here for the quiz.
Yeah.
It's like, I've become a very, even though I've always been like kind of old man esque of like shouting and stuff like that and that kind of thing. So I my personality and my age is now joining up with my personality as far as like just a brew and a soft soft spoken.
I've aged into my personality for sure. I think I'm at peak Side Eves right now.
Nice. That's you could be your new show title.
Yeah, peak Side Eves. Yeah,
Peak for short as well, which is great, catchy.
Yeah, I like it. Yeah. Maybe
the cogs are turning.
Yeah.
There you go.
I've got this show written, but the next one for sure. Yeah, that's there.
Oh, okay. How's that going with your new show?
I've not written a lot of it yet because I didn't know if I was going to be doing it this year. I didn't know what was going to be going on, so I've not really constructed it. But I've got a moderate amount of it there, so I've started trying to book in some previews. So we'll see. But obviously, Edinburgh that's not going to happen. So
I don't think anyone. The people I spoke to when I asked them about Edinburgh, like I met up with Nico in like Leicester Square not long ago, and I was like, "Hey, so any chance you're doing Edinburgh?" He just burst out laughing. I was like, "That's the same reaction everyone gave."
Yeah,
like
I think Daniel Sloss is
Joe
doing
Jacobs
it
recently, and he was just like, "No chance."
Yeah,
like so much money. Even like the smaller festivals, your Brightons, your Camdens, all those ones. And I don't know which one it is, but people have been saying like the percentage of like a venue will take 60%, and you're like you're grateful you're even open, like and I look at it as like, how much money are you putting in to get out? I did Camden, and to be fair, you make your money back at least just by turning up.
Camden's the best one,
yeah, that's a great one, and Brighton's not bad if you get a good venue.
It's not bad, but it's still like 600 quid to do the whole thing, and that's for one show.
Yeah, no, the reg cost is. I remember one comedian was saying, I won't name him, but basically he was like, "Don't pay the reg, just go up there,
Really?
go to the venue, book a venue. They're gonna turn up anyway. Like most people don't turn up because of the magazine and stuff like that.
Yeah,
and you're paying to have your name written in the brochure.
Yeah,
and obviously you're paying for your name to be on the website, and yes, you will get tickets out of that. But realistically speaking,
you won't get enough.
It's how many are you gonna get? And I mean, people should, like, certain venues, people know there's comedy there, and I go there. Like with Camden Comedy being at the Camden Head, I did it once with very little advertising, where it was just the website, and people were like half the room was packed anyway.
Yeah,
which is more than enough because it's a small room anyway. So even if you don't have the back rows, who cares? I mean, you've got them all kind of sardined in.
Yeah.
And I was just about to book a venue in Brixton, and the guy was saying to me, "Look, if we can't really get 100 people in, we're not really thinking about it." And I was like, you know what? That's fair enough. Like I'm trying to find a really small room to do like a workshopy night.
Right.
But that's only because I can manage it, and it's with so many pubs now looking for an easy event to host, I think a few of them will play ball,
Yeah.
which where before they might not have. And now it's like, look, if you can get 20 people in this pub, please do.
Well, the Cavendish Arms have started opening themselves up to previews.
I might reach out to them and just say, because I know they obviously did. There was Comedy Virgins,
Yeah.
which I don't know whatever happened to it, because I know
they're
obviously
still running. They
Yeah,
are
but it's
the bringer.
still a bringer though, no?
I think it is. Yeah. Well, for like in between the lockdowns last year, they started running it, but because they were saying like because we can't sort of do a bringer, you got to pay £10 to guarantee like to spend on the bar. And they said you'll get that back, but you've got to spend it on the bar to be able to get it back. So it's our money, but you can have £10 worth of drinks. It's like I don't want to do that. I mean, I didn't want to do it anyway because it's a bringer, and that's not.
Yeah,
You look
there's a few nights
shell-shocked.
I've been trying to book that are bringers, and I'm just like, what world do you live in that I'm gonna bring someone? You don't like before bringers and stuff like that, and you think, all right, it's a rule. You obviously want to double the amount of people there.
Yeah.
If you have 10 acts, you get 20 people in the room. Just simple math.
If you don't want to do
But
any promotion
now with the COVID and pandemic and stuff like that,
yeah.
like just you don't even know who people are bringing in. I could bring in a buddy's mass murderer.
Yeah.
I can bring in a thief. I can bring in anybody. Like you don't. And then the whole thing with that is like, are you the promoter? Like if your night isn't good enough for an audience, don't have a night, or accept that it's comedians only. We just support each other.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, it's like
because those nights work, but
they're obviously going to be enough. But all you're going to get is comedians with mates, and those people are not funny.
No, absolutely.
You've got mates. Why are you doing stand up? You should be out with your mates.
Often it's just that comedians bring in other comedians, so they're probably not going to be laughing.
Even
anyway,
that is like
they're thinking about writing jokes.
Now I got to do an IOU.
Yeah. No, it's a stupid system, and if they can't be bothered to do the promotion work, don't run a gig.
Yeah. I mean, there's that as well. I mean, as far as trying to get a venue where people already go to it.
Yeah.
But to be fair, like the nights where it's a small, one or two pub locals, and then the comedians themselves, and then that you still get a really good night.
Yeah.
I mean,
absolutely.
End of the day, it's like I've obviously told people to maybe like, oh, I'm here tonight, and then they brought like a bunch of friends who don't know me. And I don't know them. That's fine because the people are still strangers. But in general, I mean, how many times can you really bring the same person?
Yeah.
It's like I'm doing the same thing again.
They'll grow to hate you.
Same thing again.
Yeah.
But yeah, I have to.
Yes. Yeah. Cool. Sorry, man. Right. I will say, since we were talking about tea, because I've just drunk a tea from a company called Good and Proper Tea, who they've just sent me a whole box full of new stuff to to try on the podcast, and it was absolutely delicious. I had a peppermint tea, and it's hard to go wrong with the peppermint tea because it's literally sort of peppermint tea leaves in a bag, but it's very good. It's very nice. It's a quite a rich flavour with like sort of real minty notes on the end. I don't go that.
Is it like gum? Tea. Is it peppermint gum?
I mean, no, it's not dissimilar, but it's not the same. Yeah. It's it doesn't like freshen your breath in the same way. Although I would say right now, it feels quite good. But it works in the same way, like airwaves will like sort of clear your sinuses.
Yeah,
and that. Yeah. It does a similar sort of thing to that. It's quite you get the fragrant level of the mint sort of going up through your nasal passages. It's quite nice. Yeah, I'd recommend it. It's absolutely delicious, especially from Good and Proper Tea. Thanks for sending me the tea, guys. It's delicious.
Lovely podcast sponsor.
Oh, thanks so much.
Bad.
Yeah.
Doing well.
Yeah. Right now, I'm just going to ask you. I've got some questions that aren't really about tea. So you had a Tetley tea. Would that be your go-to tea if you were gonna have tea?
Yeah, PG Tips.
Yeah,
I would say it's like that loyal brand. You just know what you're gonna get.
Yeah, it's good. That's probably my.
I have had the like fancy teas with like Twinings, where they have like different flavors and stuff.
Yeah, they sent me a massive box as well.
If I'm having a proper like tea with no flavor or anything. Yeah, PG Tips, no milk, no nothing else, just
really
tea,
just black.
Yeah. Same with like I don't like to have fun with my tea.
Yeah.
But as I said before, sometimes like the lemon teas and the turmeric teas, if it's like a health thing, if you're feeling unwell, I'll definitely a tea is for me is like trying to recover from something. So like a lemon tea after a gig is probably quite nice.
Yeah. Nice. Right. Now I've got a couple of questions that are less tea based. Oh, sorry. One more tea based question. Do you dunk a biscuit?
No.
No. Well,
No.
shit. That ends that quickly. What kind of maniac are you?
Do I dunk a biscuit?
Yeah. In your tea?
No, well, I know. I mean, nah. You ruined the biscuit.
No, that's sure. You're doing it wrong, but fine. we've got to move on, so I can't get too far into that. But you are incorrect.
All right, that's it. I've failed the test.
Yeah. Right now, this led on from a conversation that I was having the other day, and they were saying that if they could push a button to get rid of anything, they'd push a button to get rid of guns and all memories of guns. I did bring up the point that, like, you know, you're still going to have projectiles because you have sort of catapults and that sort of thing. But he sort of included that in it. It sort of worked out, but not really. If you had a button to remove anything, and that would probably be including the memories of that thing existing, what would it be?
Quite a deep question to ask in the last minute of the podcast. What would I remove anything of?
It could be a person. It could be a type of thing.
Well, yeah, I mean, I don't know if I'd remove like a historical figure because obviously you learn from it and everything else.
Sure.
But I probably would remove social media.
Oh, that's a good one.
Because honestly, if it wasn't for comedy, I wouldn't be on it. And then honestly, if we just go back to the people you know or the people you talk to,
yeah,
and the only way you know more people is by traveling the world. And obviously, we still have WhatsApp. I'm not saying that, but as far as social media, as far as your opinions and everything else, because when Facebook started, it was photos, messages, hello. Same with everything else. So this idea of like, you know, Twitter your opinion, Instagram your, you know, influencers. Basically, I'd remove influencers.
Yeah.
However way you want to describe an influencer, from your Instagram model to your political figure. Yeah, I'd remove influencers.
Yeah. Nice.
Yeah.
Good answer. Right. Which one will I go with? I had a dream a little while ago during the lockdown. So I think a lot of people reported their dreams were getting weird. I have weird dreams anyway. I dream a lot, and they're often odd. I woke up at about, I can't remember what time it was, but it's in the middle of the night, and Googled, as a result of something that had happened in a dream, I Googled, what is the coldest that Julie Walters has ever been? Couldn't find out the answer. My question to you.
This was very similar to the first draft of Martin Luther King. I think he had the same thing where, what was the...
I had a dream where Julie Walters was cold and in the sea. What is the weirdest question you've ever asked as a result of a dream? Is there anything where you've ever woken up and thought like it was really real and you had to check?
Yes, I can't remember the exact moment, but it was something similar to going online and almost checking a person, something that of like, does this person do that or say that? Or maybe checking a message. I felt like almost having quite a vivid conversation with someone, and almost really thinking to myself, oh my God, like, you know, going back into that person and almost checking up on them as a result of a dream.
Yeah.
Can't remember the exact context of it. But yeah, to that nature.
Nice. Who was it? Can you say?
No.
Was it?
It was a person. You wouldn't know them anyway.
Okay. What? Right. Yeah. If you're not saying who it was, can you say what it was you thought they'd done that you had to check up?
No. I think it was just a conversation that was intense.
Okay.
I think the conversation was so intense.
Oh, you just had to check whether or not you'd actually had the conversation.
Yeah, that I was just thinking about like, where did that come from?
Yeah.
Because it was, you know, when you have a relationship with someone, not like any context relationship.
Yeah. When
you're having a conversation of that intensity, you do have to check up to see, are we still mates?
Yeah.
Like, oh yeah, that was a dream.
Oh, that never happened. Yeah, nice,
yeah.
Cool. We need to wrap up. It's got late. Is there anything you want to plug? Are you making any more movies at the minute?
Yeah,
obviously you got the stuff you've been working on.
Filmed it yet, so I'm going to start filming in probably August once the lockdown's done, and because I have some work stuff to do in July. So maybe from August onwards, I'll start filming and start gigging, but nothing to plug other than just my Instagram, which is @SirAlKassab, and Twitter, @SirAlKassab. So yeah, just follow me on social media if you find me amusing in any way. Other than that, yeah, hopefully.
Yeah, if you want to hear more stories of you learning to cycle.
yeah, I was gonna say.
Yeah. You're going to catch Lance Armstrong at the end of the Tour de France. So, hey, man.
I can beat him now.
I can cycle too.
He's
not allowed
he's
to.
a much weaker man.
He's not allowed to compete. Yeah. Off the drugs, he's basically on a tricycle.
Yeah. What a way to end.
Oh, yeah. Cool. Right. Thanks, man. It's been really fun.
Thank you, mate. Thank you so much.
Been good to catch up.
Been fun.
Yeah. Good to see you.
Yeah. Well, let's catch up in person now. We can do it.
Yeah, soon, for sure. So that was Cesar Alcasab. He is on Instagram as Cesar Alcasab, as it's written in the podcast title. Just go and have a look at that. And he's also on Twitter as Cesar Alcasab. Just search the name in the title and you will find him. I'll also put it in the podcast description. Speaking of podcast description, that is where you will find the link for my Ko-fi page. If you've enjoyed the podcast, if you enjoy it every week, if it brings you a bit of joy and you'd like to be able to say thank you somehow, but you just don't know how to reach out, then why not donate a little bit of money? Because it helps pay for the podcast, helps keep everything going, helps me buy new equipment, and generally just makes me feel really nice about myself, like I'm doing something that people enjoy. Sometimes people get in touch and tell me that they really enjoy it, and that, just as good, doesn't pay for the podcast, but it feels lovely. So I really enjoy it when people do get in touch and let me know they're listening. So thanks to you guys. Please give me a shout, and I'm very friendly. Sounds weird, but yeah, if you can donate anything, just go to kofi.com/SideEves. The link for which, if you don't want to look at the podcast description or anything like that, it's all on my website, sideeves.com. Yeah, and thank you very much for your donations thus far. You're very kind. Oh, well, I mentioned it the other week, but things are in full swing to get some merch. So they're going to be mugs available soon, and I'm very excited for that. So I'll let you all know when they're up. But they'll be available to buy through my website through sort of one means or another. So don't forget. In the meantime, if you don't want any merch but you want to support us, kofi.com/sideeves, send us whatever you want. £1, £1, 20p. I don't think you can send 20p. I think £1 is the minimum. But if you want to send me a single donation of £1 or a recurring weekly donation of £4,000 or anywhere in between, you go ahead. That is very, very lovely indeed. Oh, I mentioned that I'd tell you who I've got on next week. It is the absolutely incredible Lloyd Langford, who you will have seen on TV at some point somewhere. Is a very, very funny man, but a big fan of his work. So, yeah, look forward to that. Don't forget, in the meantime, if you don't want to get in touch or you can't send a donation, that's absolutely fine. You don't have to. Don't feel bad about it. But if you could, just drop us a little 5-star review on iTunes, or drop us a follow, or tell your friends to follow, share the posts, anything like that. It's all greatly, greatly appreciated and helps with visibility. Anyway, I'm hungry. I'm going to go and eat my lunch. And then I'm going to edit this, release it, and you'll have it in your ears by this afternoon. Thanks very much for listening, guys. I appreciate it. Be kind to each other. Oh, go and check out live comedy, because that's going on. It started again. Live comedy exists. If you listen to this before next week, I'm at the Alex next Sunday in Southend, which is my hometown gig. I was going to go and do some new material, and I'm going to have a really lovely time. I had 2 gigs on Friday, which were also very lovely indeed. Thanks to Pete Was for having me at the Comedy Cabin. So yeah, until the next time, thanks very much for listening. I love you. Goodbye.